The comment that I read in that Chris Trottam essay was he's talking about the 30s and early 40s as a time when the developers of Auckland, the planners of Auckland, linked with the Labour government, wanted to restrict the city onto the isthmus.
Yes.
What do you know about that?
Yeah, well, if I understand it, what they were looking at was high-rise. Now, the high-rise solution is how other planners in other parts of the world have worked. And I think there was this ethos within New Zealand that this thing that we're still farmers to an extent. We still like to have our own quarter-acre section. We still like to have the opportunity to get out there and have fruit trees and grow our own potatoes or something like this. There's sort of this farm. We're an urbanised society, but we still think we're rural. And I think there was something about that a lot of people. It's taking people a lot of time to think, even these days, about living in a high-rise apartment building. It just seems to be something that people didn't really associate with. We had a whole lot of, for a lot of New Zealand's history were actually run by farmer-based political parties anyway. So there was this, and even the Liberals in the 90s, every man has his own sort of half-acre paradise or whatever. He can run his own chickens and that sort of thing. So that was a deliberate policy on the Liberal government. And I think Labour in some ways still needed the votes of people who wanted to have their own quarter-acre section or something like that. I know the Public Works Department and other people was trying in some ways to create a society they knew back in Europe. New Zealand has already created a society that they knew back in England or Great Britain. And in some ways there was a bit of divergence between them. There was this notion of coming out here, have your own little plot of land. Now, I've done some research on Frank Langstone, who was actually a Labour politician, and he was MP for Mount Roskill from 1946-49. And that's the period where the reports were coming out from the Ministry of Works about having these ring roads and building that. There's nothing, and he was a great speaker, a great orator, picks up ideas. There's nothing in his public pronouncements about this. But the closest thing I can find is the link between Avondale and Onehunga, which only now is becoming a motorway. That was to be a railway link, and that went through his electorate of Mount Roskill. But that's the only time he talks about this. So I think one of the things is, it's all very well for the public servants to have all these reports, but the politicians didn't pick it up. We don't have the 1949 election fought on the alternative visions for Auckland. It's about the cost of living. It's about post-war restrictions. It's about oh God, we've had these guys since 1935. We want to change, etc., etc. It's all about that. It's not about competing visions of Auckland. Would that it was, but it wasn't. People didn't think in terms of visions of Auckland. It was more with the Conservative Council's maintenance of the status quo, make sure the rates are kept low and make sure we stay in power because the rates are low. Before the bridge, people moved over to the shore because they could still commute to the central business district by ferry, but land was cheaper out there. So you've still got Labour had one seat, at least one electorate on the North Shore, right up to 1975. So there were strong pockets of Labour voting on the North Shore. Nowadays, 20% of the National Cabinet live north of the Harbour Bridge. Labour has no thing. So you have a social change in terms of it becomes less manual working class, less skilled working class. To use those sociological expressions, it becomes more white collar, middle class, managerial, professional, those sorts of groups. People flock there because they've got the money to afford the houses, that can be built on the sections which are not flat, so they can get the view. And that's what the bridge is about.